Okay. Hi, Sarah, and hi, Alex. How you going?
Yeah,
Hiya.
really good, thanks.
Great, great. Thanks for coming on, and congratulations to you both for running such a great race for Team UK at the Set Champs. I guess it was about 4 weeks ago now.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
No problem, no problem. So I guess a good place to start would just be just how and when did you start running? I'll start with you, Sarah.
Okay, so I think I've always done a little bit of running, even at school. Like I love sports, loved doing a bit of track. And I think I found ultra running like in my kind of mid to late 20s. Um, I just found it like great for my mental health. I started teaching, and it was hectic, and I just needed a way to find a little bit of a balance, I think. And then I found running, loved it, and it was just a slippery slope from there, really. You run 20 miles, see if you can run 30 miles, and um, yeah, that's it, really.
Yeah, well, it looks like, I mean, I follow you on Instagram and it looks like you run in some pretty spectacular locations, like in the mountains and things like that. So is that just like you walk out your front door and that's where you are?
Yeah, so I'm in Cumbria. So I've got the fells on my doorstep, and I've lived here for a couple of years now. It's not where I've always lived. I think it was lockdown that made us make that move. We were here. We'd be here like every weekend anyway. We'd do the drive over and stay in the camper van, and like we love the mountains, but. Yeah, we made the move just after lockdown. So yeah, I'm lucky to live in such a beautiful place.
Yeah. So how much elevation do you reckon you've done this year?
I can answer that because I've looked at. I think it's like 500,000 feet.
Right,
Um,
okay.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I did think you were about to say 500,000 meters, but 500,000 feet is still, I think, probably about 200,000 meters. Does that sound about right?
Not sure. Not
Yeah.
sure. We're just
Okay.
working things. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
that's right.
Alex knows.
Yeah, Alex is
Yeah,
nodding.
it's about right, 150,000. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And what about you, Alex? When and how did you start running?
Yeah, similar to Sarah, I've always done a bit of running. So when I was growing up in Brussels, actually, I did the 20-kilometer race in Brussels city centre when I was 16 years old, and that's more or less a half marathon. And so I've been in a running club and done, track running and cross country races. And sort of 10Ks and 5Ks and half marathons ever since then, really. But I never used to do really the long stuff. Marathon was the maximum that I ever really did until lockdown, and then I think like quite a lot of people. Everything was disrupted during lockdown. All the normal races were cancelled. My entire goal had been about my marathon time and trying to get my marathon time quicker, but then the London Marathon was cancelled just when I was in quite good shape, and so tried some longer stuff. And actually, a friend of mine from the running club proposed a sort of local. Not even a race, just a run together where we would do a mile every 10 minutes for as long as we could and just see how long we could keep going. So almost backyard ultra style, but with a 1 mile every 10 minutes. And I think I managed, 30, 33 or 34 miles. So that would have been the first time I ever did 50K, and then sort of did a few other 50Ks. But that was really it before I discovered backyard.
Yeah, and I know you are a pretty fast runner, like, and you still work on your speed as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone in my running club would laugh at me because, I'm sort of, yeah, managed to get under 3 hours for a marathon. But of course, there's guys in the club who are doing, 2:40 this and 2:30 that and 2:20 the other. So it's all relative, isn't it? But yeah, I try to sort of go as fast as I can in the marathon, even though I'm not very talented for that. But then I think, yeah, when it comes to ultra, then maybe yeah, having a little bit of background in speed can be helpful. I think yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And Sarah, I've got it down that you ran your first backyard ultra in 2021, and you were the last one standing at that one, right?
Yeah, I think yeah, that was the Welsh one, wasn't it? Yeah. I think that was like backyard ultras went massive. When I did my first one in Wales, it was there was a lot of people running their first backyard that time, which is interesting. Yeah, when I travelled down to Wales, thought, oh wow, this is going to be maybe 2 nights, really prepared. And I think I ran about 80 miles. And I remember thinking, oh, I was disappointed because it was
Oh,
quite a long way to travel
yeah.
to run 80 miles. Yeah, it was a good one to start with, I think.
Yeah. And then on your second backyard ultra, you were the last one standing. So you've actually finished the last one standing at two in a row. And you ran 33 at the Cowshed backyard. And I saw there was a pretty good field. There was a few UK team members in that one, like Ian Bethune, Mike Rathman, and Karen Nicol as well. So you were last one standing against some pretty strong opposition in that.
Yeah, it was one of the Four Nations um events, I think. And I think at the time I didn't know it at the time, but I think that was a UK women's record. So again, like for the UK it was pretty decent yardage, I guess, at the time.
Yeah. And do you remember, like, if you met any of those runners who were going to go on to become your teammates a couple years later?
Yeah, so I think in the ultra running community, like in the UK, everyone, especially if you're up north, like everybody kind of knows. So I knew quite a lot of those people anyway. Like we do lots of the same types of ultra events, or like we just have people that we know in common. So I actually knew lots of those people anyway.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, very good. And when was making the UK Backyard Ultra team? When did you make that a goal, like when you knew you wanted to do that?
So I guess the funny thing about me is that I have I plan my ultra events that I want to do, and then I might just be like, I think I'll have a go at Rasselbach, or I'll have a go at like the other things pop into the calendar, and I just think, oh, I'll just try that. And to be honest, like it's taken me a while to understand the format and the rules, and so I wasn't. So I'd qualified at Rasselbach, but I hadn't even. I don't think I even realised what you had to do to qualify. I know that sounds ridiculous when when it's a big thing to lots of people. Um, but I was kind of just chasing, like seeing how far I could go. Like I'm fascinated with the format of the event. Um, so it kind of it wasn't a massive thing for me. Like it wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. I managed to qualify, so and found out I qualified and was obviously thrilled. Um, but yeah.
And did you find out after the race had finished that you had actually qualified?
Yeah, so I think because that was March, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because that was March, there was still like quite a lot of time that people could still qualify and I might still be bumped down. So I think like my friend who also qualified for the UK team was saying, "Oh, just watch and just you might have to do another event." I was like, "I'll just see what happens."
Yeah, and that was also a UK record. As you broke the UK record again at Rasselbach, didn't you, with 41?
Yeah, yeah, I did. So, I was running against Mike Raffan, who was also on the UK team, and so I think I ran 41. I think that's right.
Yeah.
And so I was running the Southwest Coastal Path the month after. So I think it was like 3 weeks after, which is 630 miles. And I knew that was in the calendar. So I kind of had to finish. Yeah, I didn't want to break myself. So I was like, that seems like a good 41. I'm happy with that. And got the women's UK record and I feel good. So let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty surprised actually when I was looking at the other races you've done this year. And it was only 3 weeks before the Sat Champs, you ran a 182-kilometer race. So was that part of your plan before you knew you'd made the UK team, or was that just part of your training block?
It wasn't part of my training block, and I knew it was really. I really want to say that it was, and that it was a calculation. No, but it really wasn't. And I knew it was really risky. But yeah, I just thought I kind of already had 13 valleys in the schedule, and then I realised what the date was for the backyard, and I kind of weighed it up. Do I, don't I? 3 weeks is it's a good amount of time, isn't it? And I always think with backyards, like, you're not running fast at any point, are you? I think because it was that way around, because I had the ultra first and then the backyard, I think it kind of worked okay. But it wouldn't work the other way, I don't think.
Yeah. So did you take things just a little bit more easy in that race than you would have otherwise?
No, no, I went for the
win. Cool. So Alex, how did you decide that you wanted to run a backyard ultra? Yeah, how did that all come about?
Yeah, I think I remember, reading about it or hearing about it way back sort of, 2018, 2019, because I'd seen the Barkley Marathons documentaries from Netflix. And so I had an idea about, Laz. And so I'd read about this format and what was being done in America and at Biggs. And then I think I even remember sort of noticing, oh, there's one in the UK as well. And I was sort of interested. But at the time, I was running 5Ks and 10Ks and marathon, and I was quite serious about sort of actually getting PBs in those distances. So I was more interested as like, oh, that's something interesting, but I didn't think I would do it right away. And then COVID came along, and then I guess it became more real. And actually, a friend of mine from the running club told me that he'd signed up for this thing called Rasselbach, and that was we're talking about 2 years ago when I sort of first got into this world, I suppose, because I did the Rasselbach in March 2023, and that was the first time they organized it. But I think I already signed up for it back in, let's say September, October 22, when my friend suggested it to me, and they'd found out about it from the Bad Boy Running podcast, which is, always talked about backyards a bit, which is pretty cool. And it was just at that time that I wanted to, I'm quite serious about, if I get into something, I want to do as well as I can at it. So I was like, backyard, well, what's the strategy, what's the tactics? And I searched my Spotify for podcasts, and I think I found one in Australia that was getting pretty deep into backyard, and I think you'd only just started 1 or 2 episodes, but I was like, oh, this is speaking my language. So I listened to all of your podcasts before I actually did my first backyard in Rasselbach. So I guess in theoretical terms, I was probably the best prepared sort of first backyarder there's been, thanks to all the amazing interviews you did with Phil Gore and everyone else.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I remember you were actually the first person from overseas who actually messaged me and said, like, or tagged me in a post and said that you listened to the podcast. And I remember I was blown away. I was so happy.
Oh, well, likewise, I was, addicted in terms of sort of thinking about how I could do this race. But I had no idea how I would do. And I suppose, like a lot of people, 24 hours is the first thing you think of when you think of doing it for the first time. But of course, I'd been listening to your podcasts, and so I sort of knew, you can't just say 24 hours because then you'll quit when you reach the target. So I was like, oh no, I'm going to go more than 24 hours. But then, of course, that translated into 30 hours because I think my brain was like, okay, well, you've done 24 and you said you're going to go more. So how about 6? And then, like, that's it. It was very cold and it was getting dark, and I wasn't, I kind of just stopped, for the people I was with were stopping, and of course I had a hotel room booked for that evening, which is a classic rookie error that I wouldn't make again. And so for all kinds of reasons, the first one was sort of, let's say experimental, and stopped after 30 yards, and then the race was only won in 36. And so of course afterwards I thought, oh, why did I stop? I could have been there. But so and then I was hooked and got talked into doing Suffolk 3 months later, which was June 2023. And Dom Halbert was very friendly. I met him at Rasselbock, and he said, oh, you've got to come back for Suffolk, give it another go. And so I had another go there, and I managed to get 40 yards, but it still felt like unfinished business. But I thought maybe 40 would, get me to the SAT champs, and so that was it really. So a long gap because I went back to marathon and back to shorter stuff in between. So
yeah. So when you ran that 40, and at that time it did well and surely put you on UK's at large list, was that the goal, like to get on that at large list when you ran that race?
No, my goal was to go directly to Biggs. Do not pass. Do not pass. No thoughts of SAT champs. I went to Suffolk, pretty cocky, thinking, oh, this at large list looks like if I can get 60, if I can just double my first one, I thought that'll be pretty good. And so no, I had lots of big ideas, but it didn't quite happen because in the end my knee got very sore, and that was really what stopped me. At 40. No, I had outrageous ideas and ambitions that I could do, something around 60, then I'd be off to Tennessee, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, that 40 that you ran, as you mentioned, that's the race that got you onto Team UK. And it was a long gap. Was there any times when you thought, oh, I'm going to get knocked off here, or anything like that? Or were you confident the whole time would be enough to keep you on the team?
Let's say I was keeping an eye on my backup options. I was ready to see if lots of other UK people managed bigger distances, then it was going to be a case of, game on. And so I think I had the Highlander circled in my calendar as something that I would be able to pop up and give it a go if that was necessary, because that was the one that was quite close to the deadline in July or August. So if people had knocked me below 15, I would have come back and had another go, I think.
Yeah. And that Suffolk where you ran the 40 yards, that was an epic race. That was the one where Hendrick and Oriel were going at it for ages, and they both were like sleeping on course, and it was a really fun race to follow. So that must have been a pretty epic race to actually run in.
It was amazing to be in it and to see that. And because they had such a strong international crowd, but also John Stocker and some UK runners who went quite a bit further than 40 hours. And so it really was a case of seeing these people that were in a completely different league, and of course that was inspiring. It made me feel like, well, 40 hours was nothing, because they made a great documentary that I'm sure you've watched on which is on YouTube. And of course, I quite rightly, I don't feature. I'm just, not even mentioned, because why would they? Because they're focusing on these amazing runners that are going on literally more than twice as long as me. So yeah, that was pretty. I guess that showed me how far I still had to go. So it was inspiring in that sense.
Yeah, yeah. So the Set Champs UK team, they ran at Suffolk, I believe, but it was a new Suffolk course. So, Sarah, how would you describe the course that you ran the Set Champs at this year?
So it was a really, really runnable course. It was mainly like woodland tracks, very flat, hardly any elevation. Um, Perfect, really. If you know you want a good fast lap time. Not that I did any fast lap times, but yeah, super, super runnable.
Yeah. And Alex, you've run at both courses. How does this compare to the old Suffolk course?
Yeah, I think it's not totally different. They're both, in pleasant forest land, and they're both fairly flat, apart from a little undulation. Yeah, the new one is probably, in practical terms, it's even more runnable, and it's smoother, and it's something where you're very unlikely to trip up at night time, except for one or two tiny sections. Whereas the old course was just a little bit more technical and a little bit more varied in the terrain. But both very runnable courses. But yeah, if there's a slight difference, then probably the new one is in a very sort of managed sort of forest environment, whereas the old one was in a nature reserve that was just a tiny bit more wild.
Right, yeah, like because in the old course, like you were running in the same area, like you would run straight past horses and things. Like, were there horses in the same area you were running in at this one?
I mean, I'd ask Sarah, but I have to say I didn't see any wildlife of any note the whole time I was running. Whereas in the old Suffolk course, there were actually, nighttime encounters with various kinds of strange animals that were looking me in the eye and freezing in the headlights. So yeah, no, it was a bit different in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. And Sarah, did you guys have access to like mains power, or was it just generator power? Sarah?
Sorry, it cut off a bit at the start, so I didn't hear you say my
Yeah,
name.
no, I was just asking, like, did you have access to mains power, or was it just all generators and things like that?
No, we didn't. No, no, it was just a case of charging our own things using battery packs, and
Yeah,
um, yeah, that's it.
yeah, fair enough. And what shoes were you wearing?
So I wore a range of Innovate shoes.
Yeah.
I did transition to some road shoes, probably about lap, I don't know, in maybe the 40s, because it was just so compact. And I was having a little bit of IT pain, so I just uh, transitioned to a slightly more cushioned shoe. But yeah, I had a range of trail and road.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I was pretty much in road shoes most of the time. It was in Hoka, but Hoka road shoes,
Yeah.
which again, it was such easy ground underfoot that was just the most comfortable for me.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect course. Was there the travel time to get there? Like, was it how long? How far is it from your place, Alex?
Oh, I was very lucky. It was just a couple of hours in the car for me, and I think out of the team of 15 of us, I think there were maybe three or four of us that had that sort of very lucky journey. Whereas Thomas, who came from the islands way north of Scotland, and more or less had a sort of, was it a 4 or 5 day odyssey that he had, Sarah?
I think it was, yeah. It made my like 5 or 6 hours seem very short in comparison. I think it was the week after, wasn't it? He was like, I'm finally home.
So where was he traveling from?
Uh, I want to say the Orkneys.
It was, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, 5 or 6 days.
I
I
think
might be
because it's
exaggerating there, but several days, definitely. Yeah. A number of
he's
boats and all
right.
that kind of thing.
So like you guys would know, all the different countries started around the world started their races at exactly the same time. So one of the variables was the start time. What was the UK? What time did the UK start their race?
Was it 1 p.m., Alex? Was it?
Yeah, it was 1 p.m. and because quite a few of the UK races start at 12 noon anyway, so that's kind of for me that was what I was used to really. It was the same as both Suffolk and Rasselbach. They had started at 12 noon and 1 p.m. is about the same, so that was quite lucky for us, I think.
Yeah, it sounds perfect. I think that way you can sleep in and it's not too late either. So, and it actually sounds like the perfect time. Did you like that start time, Sarah?
Yeah, I think because I'd travelled up the day before, I'd like split up the drive, so it just gave us a bit of chance to set up the tent, and yeah, we had the car park a little way away from where we were setting up, so we were all kind of traipsing across, and yeah, we needed that. I think it was nice to have that time to set up. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So another variable is the weather. What was the weather like for you guys?
I'd say I think it was perfect. I think it was perfect running weather. Would you think? Did you think it
Did
was?
you remember when we were setting up? It was tipping down with rain, wasn't it? And that wasn't very nice for the crew. But
Yeah,
actually, then for us as runners, it was really good because the temperature was just exactly what you would have chosen, wasn't it? Definitely, it was never too hot, never too cold. It really so. There was wind and there was rain at times, but as a runner, it didn't get in our way, did it? No, it was fine.
there was a weather warning, wasn't there? At one point, they thought that the wind might pick up, but I don't think it ever did. Did it?
It got gusty because, of course, the same sort of storm which was cancelling the Irish race, which was so terrible for them. We were getting the same kind of weather system, but I think by the time it came to the east of England, it was a bit gusty, but it was as long as the tents were properly anchored down, it was all fine.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than when the marquees start flying around. Um, Now, did you guys have much of a discussion amongst yourselves about what you wanted to actually achieve as a team? Because I mean, it is a country versus country race as well as an individual kind of race. Sarah?
We had a WhatsApp group, and there was a little bit of discussion on there. But I don't think there was, there wasn't a definite kind of this is what we're going to do, this is what we're aiming for. Um, so yeah, no, I don't know, Alex, do you think that? I don't know, maybe
On,
I
on
missed.
on the WhatsApp group, there was a little bit of chat about, oh, wouldn't it be great if everyone got to 48 hours? Let's see if we can have absolutely the maximum number of us possible out of the 15, make it to 48 hours and see how we go from there. So that was positive sort of motivational chat before the race.
Yeah. And what about the way you ran the race, Sarah? Did you actually run it a little bit differently than you would have if it wasn't a team event?
I think so, yeah. I think especially for myself, I'm kind of I'm not the most sociable person, so I'm happy just to do a lot of running on my own. And I think there was more of a like I've definitely made more of an effort to chat to people, and we worked together. For example, there was sometimes I had a like there was a little bit of a gradient. There was like the tiniest gradient, and in the I think it might be in the first night, I think it was just because I wasn't running anymore because I was walking up the hill, I would start to drift off a bit. So I buddied up with one of the teammates, and he would talk to me whenever we were walking up the hill. We'd have a little chat just to get my brain working. So there was some little, yeah, we did work as a team. I think everybody kind of found their natural, like, little groups. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed, like, it was like a backyard ultra with a difference, isn't it, almost? And I liked that.
Mm. And what about you, Alex?
Yeah, it was, because there's a small number of people, and I think some people were finding it a big change when they were only the 15 of us, and they're used to that sort of very sociable first 24 hours with, 50 or 100 runners at the start. So quite different. But no, it was very friendly. I enjoyed, sharing laps with, Julie and Ian and Mike and Chris and a number of the other runners. And so yeah, it was just a good atmosphere, I would say, with everyone, clearly everyone supporting everyone else and trying to get people to go as well as they could.
Yeah. And had the two of you met prior to this race?
No, I don't think we had. No, I'm very much the outsider because, as Sarah mentioned, maybe ultra runners in the community get to know each other from lots of races, but I'm not really an ultra runner, so I guess I knew relatively few of the people unless they had specifically been at those two backyards I'd done before.
Yeah, sure. So I was looking at average loop times, and I mean they were kind of close. So were the two of you running next to each other or close to each other for much of the time?
Not at all. So I got the impression that Alex was running much faster than me. Because I think it was only really, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, because my version of events, like, I remember things differently, but I think I only really noticed Alex maybe in the last like 10 or so laps. I think I felt like I was just at the back a lot of the time. And in my head, Alex was at the front, but
It's probably one of those maths things. Maybe our averages were the same, but I was doing a bit of a split pace strategy, and so quite a lot of my loops were actually very slow, especially in the first 24 hours. I was going for a sort of 52, 53-minute sweet spot, so not particularly rapid. And but then as the race went on, I was sort of mixing that pace with something, in the low to mid 40s to get a sleep lap. So I was kind of the average ended up somewhere in between, but I was trying to do either, easy paced laps or faster ones with a sleep.
Yeah, and
I wonder if. Sorry, no. I was just thinking out loud, really, because everybody gets into the like groove, don't they? And you run that bit, you walk that bit. So I wonder if it was just, that, like, maybe Alex ran the first bit, whereas I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And talking about sleep, I mean, this is the deepest both of you had been in a backyard ultra. Had you slept in previous backyards, and did you have any issues sleeping in this one, or did you sleep easily? I'll let you go, Sarah.
I haven't slept in a backyard ultra previously, because obviously 41 was my previous best. So, and I didn't sleep in this one, and I didn't try to sleep. I just figured that up to the third night you kind of can get away with it. And also I just really struggle with the fact that there's a checkpoint every hour, and you come in and everyone's hi, and you've got your poker face on, and I just think yeah, for me, I think, I don't know, we'd have to get into really big numbers before I'm thinking about sleep.
Yeah, sure. And Sarah, did you have any, like, do you have like a caffeine plan or anything like that in the race?
Keep topped up with the coffee, that's all.
Yeah. Okay, cool. But you did sleep then, did you, Alex?
Yeah. I mean, I really like my sleep, and so actually, the those sort of getting the 13 or 14 or 15 minutes sleep, especially after the first 24 hours of the race, or after a certain amount of time when I'm pretty tired and into the second night, I guess, then I was out like a light and I was getting those really good quality sleeps, and it hugely affected my mood as well. Actually, if I went for at that stage later in the race, second night or the third day, I'd be getting tired with two or three laps in a row and getting a bit low in my mental state. But then if I did a fast lap and had a sort of 15-minute sleep or nearly that, then I was ridiculously fresh and bouncy after it. So it really changed my mood. So yeah, for myself, I'm a big. It's what I need to do. I think to keep going is I need to keep sleeping. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So another thing that's important with going deep in a backyard ultra is having like a good crew. So, Alex, how many people or who did you have crewing for you?
I was very lucky. I had a fantastic crew, and I had my 17-year-old son Gregory was helping me throughout, and my sister-in-law Mary was there. So my wife's sister is absolutely brilliant at camping and outdoors and all these kind of practical things, and she's a head teacher, so she was also great at bossing me around and telling me to go out and do another loop. And I had my brother-in-law as well there, my sister's husband, and he's fantastic as well. So I was all crewed up and very fortunate in that respect. They were really great.
Yeah, awesome. And what about you, Sarah?
I had my partner Luke with me, and he was brilliant. So he slept lots of the first night to try and so we figured that you're pretty self-sufficient, aren't you? That first day, first night. And it's after that really that things fall apart. So he banked his sleep, and then we were good. It was fine.
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, so just the one crew person. That's good that they were able to sleep and stuff. That's important that the at least the crew slept.
Yeah, one of us did, eh?
Yeah. And Sarah, did you have a very detailed like race plan, like a loop by loop race strategy?
Um, no, I can't say I did, no. It was more just a case of like just looking after myself and um keeping on top of food and water and electrolytes, and if I had any, I don't know, I didn't really have any blisters, but changing socks and just like, I was very aware of keeping on top of those things, that none of those things became an issue. But there was no plan as such. There was no lap 10, I'm going to do this, or it was more just seeing what I needed.
Yeah. And what about you, Alex? Did you have like a loop by loop plan written up?
Because I've listened to your podcast and because I've heard how Phil Gore does it, I did have a sort of spreadsheet, but really it was just about food and drink suggestions for each hour, what to eat when I get back, what to take with me, because I was trying to take quite a lot of food and eat the food while I was on walking during the laps to save time, and so I would be able to maximize sleep. Yeah, from the past experience of the past two backyards I did, I found that for me, it doesn't really work to plan in advance the paces, but I had the general idea that I would do mixed pace and that, either the laps should be easy to save my legs because I had the knee pain stopping me the previous time. So I thought I should save my legs as much as possible, but also throwing in the fast ones when necessary for getting some sleep. So no, not a highly detailed plan apart from lots of different food and drink ideas.
Yeah. Was there a particular aspect of running a backyard ultra that you felt was most important to absolutely getting right leading into the race, Alex?
Yeah, so going back to, what stopped me at 40, and I did want to go much further, and I thought 40 wasn't my limit. So in terms of finding where that limit was, um, I in my training, I just maximized as much mileage as I could at a really easy pace because I just thought again, well, your knee or your legs let you down last time, so toughen them up. Just do the maximum weekly mileage possible for a number of months, really, over the summer before the race, just to have the most chance that then when I'm actually doing the race, that my legs are used to that, and so they don't complain too much, and get used to that very easy pace. I practiced my power walking as well, and practiced some nighttime running and some simulations, and also just constantly eating and drinking. So all my training runs are always popping to a cafe or a restaurant and getting some food in the middle of it, because you should always get your stomach working as well. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, awesome. And what about you, Sarah? Was there one particular aspect that you were really focused on getting right?
Do you know, I don't think there was anything in particular that I like focused on specifically for the backyard. I think a lot of my training for the other ultras that I do like lends itself to doing well at backyards anyway. You've got the night run, you've got the volume in. Yeah, so yeah, no.
No, fair enough. So you were obviously the last two runners standing. Who were some of the other runners in the team that whose performances really stood out to you? Was there some runners that you want to mention, Sarah, that you were really impressed with their performance?
I think we'll see a lot more from Julie Bethune. I think I can't remember exactly she definitely got past 48 hours. I think you mentioned her in one of the previous podcasts, because I think she left her job to take a place up on the team. She's a great runner. She's done a lot of long distance events. I'd say she specialises in like 200s. So I think we'll see. I think she was disappointed with her. And I think we'll see a lot from her in backyards in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, she was definitely one runner who I was really hoping would do well, and I thought she did do really well. She smashed her PB, so yeah, I hope she's happy with her performance. What about you, Alex?
Oh, Sarah's taken mine. I mean, Julie was a standout performance, also because she did get to 48 hours, but that was a great achievement for her because she was really slowing down and struggling, already by 45, 46 hours. But I think by sheer will, she was determined to get at least to 48, and really dragged herself round those final yards, and that was very impressive. And then yeah, I think that was the standout performance. I think amongst a lot of the other runners, there's really strong runners where something didn't go for them on the day, in terms of some injuries and in terms of some issues that runners had that probably got in their way on the day.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely people notice when John Stocker dropped because he dropped well short of his PB. Was that an injury? Because I know he has had issues with his knee. Is that what cost him the race? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think it was an issue with his shoulder, I think. But I couldn't say for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard shoulder mentioned. Yeah, that was unfortunate because of course it was really a case of John Stocker and the other 14 in terms of our PBs at the start. So he was far and away in a league of his own.
Mm. Now, when you go deep in an backyard ultra and just an ultra, like you can get hallucinations. Sarah, do you ever get hallucinations in any of your ultras, or Did you have it? And did you have hallucinations in this one?
Um, I don't think I had any in this one. I can't remember. But I do, yeah, I often have hallucinations, but I don't know if they are hallucinations really, because I'm like very aware, do you know, that of what my mind's doing. But yeah, I don't think I've ever had any in backyards, and I think it's just that thing of like you've got to be, on the hour, every hour, like I say, you've got that checkpoint. It's bright, you're alert, and yeah, it's like very different. Yeah, it's very different, isn't it, to being in the countryside, stumbling about for the whole night. You're not seeing anyone, and yeah, it's just very different, isn't it?
Hmm. And what about you, Alex? You were getting a lot of sleep, but were you still getting hallucinations?
Yeah, I guess you call it hallucination. Certainly, my brain stopped really trying too hard in terms of filling in the details of my field of vision at the sides. And so when we were running through the forest at night, in the deep part of the race, then I started seeing like rows of machinery on either side, like diggers or buildings, because I think my brain was just so tired it couldn't be bothered to actually fill in that those are actually trees and bushes, and it just like who cares what it is? Maybe it's rows of machinery, maybe it's rows of buildings. It's just something off to the side. It doesn't matter. So, yeah, I was kind of aware of that, and it didn't bother me again because I'm running straight ahead. I can see the ground in front of me, and yeah, it doesn't really matter what there is to the side. But it was kind of definitely a sense that my normal vision was breaking down a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So Alex, I was looking at the times you were running your loops in, and I saw your last yard was your slowest yard, which was 56 minutes. But not long before that, you ran some quick ones. So you ran 43 minutes on yard 53 and a 46-minute yard on yard 55. So what happened at the end?
Oh, it's a sad story at the end. I actually took a wrong turning, and it was pitch
Oh,
black in the sort of 11 p.m. coming up to midnight, and you'd think after the first 57 hours that I might have learnt exactly how the course worked, but no, I took a missed a turning, and I ended up running a half mile extra, so nearly a k extra. So that slow loop time included a big sprint for me to, once I'd realized my mistake, to make sure I got back in time. I was sort of really running as fast as I could. So it was actually the same effort that would have normally got me one of those sleep loops. Had to put in the same effort like I should have had a 46-minute loop or something, to get a nice rest. But instead, it was a wasted effort because it was just to get back in time after I managed to go half a mile out of my way. So that was a shame at the end. But just reflecting how tired I was at that point, I guess.
yeah. So reflecting back on your race, Alex, like, what would you change about your strategy or race plan if you were to do it again, or do you feel like you did everything right?
I mean, no, it's the mental side. I clearly, Sarah did everything right, and I didn't because I fell short and came second. So, but my legs were still fine. So legs were fine. I was still eating well, no problems there. Just the mental side, and I think, looking back on it, I think I was really sort of my mantra before the race was, the race only starts at 48 hours, and I was sort of determined that I would you know make it into that third night, because I also thought after 48 hours there'd be a few runners left, but then when it was nightfall a few hours after that and into the third night, then that would also knock people out, and that's exactly how it played out. So then when it fell darkness, it was just me and Sarah, I think, on that entering that third night. But I think I simply hadn't planned and visualized enough for that part of the race. But what the preparation I done got me to that point, but then it was a bit of a blank. Then I didn't know what happened next, and then I kind of got very tired, made the wrong turning, got a bit frustrated, and then really just stopped at that point. So no, all mental, which I guess is quite normal in a backyard, but that's definitely how I felt.
Yeah. And Sarah, you were shaking your head then when Alex said that you did everything right. So, what would you change about your race?
So I think like every backyard that I've done, I've learned something new. And I think like especially from listening to Alex there, I think probably, if we're going into a third, the third night is heavy, isn't it? It's hard, and I think probably need to think about a little bit of a sleep strategy. I think that would help me get through the third night and into that fourth day. Because once the sun comes up, you're going to be fine. You're going to get that second wind or whatever. But yeah, and also following on from what Alex said, there were so many turnings in that forest. I don't know how we didn't get lost before, because every corner that you turned on, there was options and it was marked. But in the dark on the third night, I can see how that happened.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have had anyone to follow either as well, like because there was just the two of you.
Yeah, and there was
Yeah,
quite a distance between us because we were obviously both running and walking different sections.
Mm. Mm. Alex, did you start loop 59?
I did. I started it. Again, as I say, my legs were perfectly fine. So I ran half of it, and then when I was at the furthest point from the camp, I sort of, just stopped running. There's not really a good explanation for it. I was tired, and I guess at that moment I was frustrated with having had the wrong turning, and I hadn't had enough sleep, and I stopped running, and I didn't start again. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And Sarah, did you have a feeling Alex was going to drop when he did, or were you surprised?
Um, no, so I think somewhere, I can't remember what lap it was. It all kind of just merges into to like blocks for me. But I think at some point when there was three of us in, when Wayne was in too, we discussed trying to get like maybe into the 70s. We'd had a little discussion and said, if we can just keep us all in, keep moving. There was a little bit of talk about that. So I got through the laps where I had the IT pin, got through that, started to feel good again, and just kind of got my head down and was just trying to like not think about the bigger picture, but just tick off laps. So I was a bit surprised when Alex dropped, and obviously, he looked strong. So I was surprised, and it's that thing, isn't it, where obviously you've won. There's you've got to celebrate that, but on the other hand, you've stopped accumulating points for the team, and when you've got hopes for you both to go a bit further. So yeah, bit of a mixed feeling there, really, and obviously disappointed for Alex too, because it takes a lot of effort to get to that point, doesn't it? And you can just imagine, if that was your race, put yourself in their shoes and imagine how it would feel. So yeah, mixed emotions.
Hmm. So I was looking at your times as well, Sarah, and there was a period from the 51st yard, your time started slowing, and you actually ran your slowest yard on number 53 when you ran it in 58 minutes and 10 seconds. After that, you did speed things up. So do you remember what happened during that time?
I know that I did. I think that was when I was kind of dealing with the IT pin, I think. And I know that the 58 something, I knew I was sick on the way out, quite sick. But I took my race vest, took some water, and took some like snacks for the first time because I'd just been having it on the breaks. And then yeah, and then I think I was just tired. I think the sleep deprivation was getting to me. So I think what was happening was I was doing the first half of each of those next laps slower than the previous laps, but I couldn't figure out where I was doing it slower because obviously I was walking the same bits, running the same bits. So I think I was just dawdling because I was tired, and then I was having to run the second half, like looking at my watch, like, come on, you've got it. And I felt like I was running really fast. I probably wasn't. I was probably doing like solid 12-minute miles. But yeah, so I was doing something on the first half of those laps and then trying to get in as fast as I could. But then I kind of just sorted myself out in it. Yeah, and kind of eased back into my usual pace
Yeah.
for a few laps.
So you mentioned you were sick. Like, were you actually like vomiting, or is that what you mean by the?
But yeah, I was, but I think I just needed like a reset. Like I felt fine after that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. So that 53 that I mentioned that you ran it in 58 minutes and 10 seconds, Alex, that was the yard that you ran in 43, like I mentioned before. So were you aware that Sarah was coming in pretty late?
It's a good question, and of course I was, because I probably saw Sarah coming in, when I was getting up and getting ready to go again. And if you follow a lot of backyards, then often if a runner comes in after 58 minutes in the late stages of a race, then often that only means one thing. And it's quite unusual for a runner to have a 58-minute lap, late in a race, deep in a race, and then to turn it round. And so I have to admit that was probably something that I didn't deal with at all well, because mentally that was probably the worst thing that I could see. If Sarah had kept doing solid sort of, you know, times where I hadn't noticed anything about Sarah, then I could have focused on my own running and my own strategy. But that probably actually, seeing that 58-minute lap probably took my mind to exactly the wrong place, and to focusing on, is Sarah about to finish? Or, then maybe I've got the win, and then a couple of hours later, like, disappointed, oh, Sarah seems to have turned it around, which is a terrible thing to say, because for the team we both want to go as far as possible, and we both want to get those times in the 70s. But being honest, that was probably something that was going through my mind and was destabilizing me a bit.
Yeah. So when you were waiting for Sarah to come back in after you'd finished 53, were you even thinking maybe this is it, she's going to time out? And were people telling you, I'm not sure if she's going to come back in?
No, because I was asleep. I was sleeping. I had done a fast lap and I was having a really great sleep then. But I guess no, it was more just a case that as I was waking up and getting to the line, just knowing that that had been a 58-minute lap.
Yeah, yeah. So I heard on a podcast, Sarah, before the race, and the host asked you what you hoped to achieve at the Sat Champs, and you actually said that you wanted to go till you can't anymore. So you didn't actually achieve what you wanted out of the race, but you do have a golden ticket to Biggs. Are you going to go?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Have you been to the US before?
No, I haven't. No.
Awesome. And is your partner going to go and crew for you? Have you started working all that type of
Yeah,
stuff? Yeah.
he is. He's going to come along, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Oops, sorry, to see how far we can go on that course. Yeah, be good.
Yeah. And were you like following, like, were you into Biggs like last year? Were you following along and watching the race, the live stream and everything like that?
I feel really bad saying it, but I've got to be honest. I wasn't. No. Like, I mean, I do follow ultra running, and I'm interested, and I would have looked at but yeah, no, sorry, I wasn't. I feel really bad saying that.
No, no, I'm sure you're not the only one. Um, so, Sarah, what did you learn during that 59 yards that you'll take with you into Bigs?
think I think it's all. I think the thing with the backyard, you've done all your training, and it's very much mindset, isn't it? And yeah, like I was questioning kind of the IT pain, and was that partially in my mind? And um, I don't know. I think it just, yeah. Oh, and I think obviously we've talked about, sleep strategies, and if you really want to hit those um big numbers, you're probably going to need to get some sleep. So yeah, a couple of little things to take forward.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you obviously like your point to point and stage races, but are you going to run any backyard ultras before Bigs?
I don't plan on running any. No, I've got quite a few ultras in the calendar. Um, yeah, and I think I'll just use the training from them to carry us forward.
Yeah, yeah. And what races do you have coming up that you're most looking forward to?
So I've got the Winter Spine in January. So it's yeah, 260 miles along the Pennine Way, which will be fun.
Yeah,
Hopefully we get some good wintry conditions.
yeah. Awesome. And what about you, Alex? Are you excited to run your next a backyard ultra soon?
I'm having similar to before. I'm actually on a break from backyard ultras. I got my place for London Marathon confirmed this week. Got an entry for London, and that's in April. So yeah, it gives me a nice block of normal running, try and regain my speed, which I've sort of lost over the last few months where with the backyard focus. So no, they honestly they take a huge amount out of me, and it takes me a long time to recover afterwards. And so I've said I definitely won't be doing another backyard ultra for at least 2 years. And of course, 2 years takes us to October 26, and then it'll be Sat Champs again. And with the system they have, for qualifying for Sat Champs, probably at the moment I'm on that list, and I would love to get knocked off it, because I would love to see the scene in the UK improve to a point where everyone's throwing around those kind of yardages. But the most likely thing is that I'll sort of still be within that 15, and then probably that would be the next backyard in a couple of years.
Yep. And what about just point to point ultras? Are you going to run any ultras as well?
Yeah, I've signed up for the Comrades Marathon in South Africa. So in that's in June, and that's an awesome race. That's the distance is more than two marathons, I think, but it's on the road, but very, very hilly, lots of elevation as well. It's a down race in June next year. But when they say down, it's down, up, down. Still lots of elevation as well. And but the atmosphere at that race is friends who've done it tell me that it's something absolutely amazing. The whole country goes bananas for the Comrades Marathon, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I've heard that race they start it at the other end every second year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's why they call it the up race and the down race, because it's Durban to into so you run from the beach into the mountains, and that's the up race, and then you run the other way around, and it's a down race, and so it's the down race next year in June.
Yeah, awesome. So you may both know that I like asking my guests for their three backyard ultra tips. Sarah, what are your three backyard ultra tips?
Um, oh, can Alex go first? Give us a chance to think.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. My first backyard ultra tip is really about training with the nutrition, and I honestly believe that every single training run is an opportunity to eat something and drink something quite a lot before you go out, and give your stomach a challenge and get your stomach working and training just all the time. What I see from some runners is that they'll occasionally use nutrition during their training runs, but actually, if it's at all possible that your stomach will be the limiting factor, why not constantly put your stomach to work, get it used to that hard work. And for me, milkshake was really effective. I was having strawberry flavored milk and banana flavored milk because it's got loads of sugar in it and it's quite energy dense. And I just got really used to drinking that before and during my runs, and then it worked well for me on the race.
Very good. Now, I liked how you said that you like dropping into cafes and getting meals while you're out on runs too. That's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're doing these 2 or 3 hour training runs, why not? It matches the rhythm of the backyard as well.
Yeah,
Approximately every 45, 50 minutes, just go and have a burger, go and have a sandwich. There's no excuse. It's an open opportunity.
yeah. Okay, that's number two.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but I think have a think about a mixed pace strategy. If you're thinking of going really deep, then for me, it's what I've settled on in terms of the combination of saving my legs and saving my energy by going easy for most of the loops, but then doing the relatively much faster one every 3 hours, maybe, when it's getting deep into the backyard, to keep the sleep coming as well. So I think a lot of people think about their pacing strategy as a certain pace per yard, but I think there could be an advantage in deliberately having slow and a fast, and mixing those up for the sleep. That would be my second one.
Yeah. Another thing with mixing up the pace as well, it's also handy to be able to run a fast one, like for bathroom breaks and things like that too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And my third one would be practice night running. Yeah, for myself, I didn't really have much experience, and then was it 13, Sarah, 13 or 14 hours in every 24 was really running in the pitch black, and so that was a very daunting idea for me. And so for me, just having my head torches really sorted out in advance, practicing the night runs quite often, and just being really confident about going out into the night, and normalizing it so that that's no big deal for me, and I know exactly what I'm doing. So that would be my third tip. If you're not used to nighttime running, but actually half the backyard ultra will be taking place during the night, which is a lot of nighttime hours, so practice that deliberately as well.
Yeah, nice one. Have you got any, Sarah?
I've got some. So I think one of the things that kind of worked mentally for me was that in April, when I did the Southwest Coastal Path, I had like it sounds bad, I had a really terrible time out there. Like, there were some days when it was just super, super, super hard. And I guess like that gave me, it was like something in my mental toolbox which I could pull out when things got tough, or I had the IT pin, where I was like, well, I've done that, this will be fine. So I guess it's picking maybe your events carefully, thinking about your training and the runs that you do in the run up. I don't know if that's a tip, but that's what you're getting. The second one would be pick your crew carefully. So I purposefully chose to have one crew member, and my reasoning for that was that who would I want there when things get really messy, and also who wouldn't I want there if things get really messy. And I just think you've got that one person in your tent, it's a safe space, and whatever happens in the tent stays in the tent. And maybe my third tip, so what I know, I appreciate Alex's first tip, but I was thinking, for me, I eat a lot of real food on backyard ultras. That's not something that I'd usually do on ultras. I'm usually a big like gel and sports nutrition fan. But I just think you've got the opportunity to, you've got the time to, you've got a checkpoint every hour. So I try and utilize that by eating lots of real food, so kind of get your stomach used to that, I guess. Sorry, they're awful tips. That's all I've got.
They're great. They're great. I especially like the first one, like when things get tough, remembering something that you got through in another race that was tough. It kind of reminds me of like Goggins' cookie jar. Are you familiar with that? Goggins' cookie jar?
No.
I'm not a David Goggins. You've got a couple of non-fans. I think I don't think we know much about David Goggins.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks both for coming on. You both did really, I mean, you both did an awesome job. You both smashed your PBs. Sarah, you're going off to Bigs, and I can't wait to see how you go. All the best there. I've got a feel, I know you're going to do really, really well, and I'm really excited to watch how you go.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, no problem. And well done to you, Alex. Hopefully, if you do get knocked off the at-larges for the UK team, I hope you do try and run another one and make it back onto the team, because you're obviously a really talented runner and a really, really good backyard ultra runner too. So I want to see how far you can go.
Yeah, brilliant. No, I'm looking forward to finding out, but I definitely need a big gap between the races because they're just very, very draining. It took me weeks to feel back on an even keel. So I'm amazed at runners that do 4 or 5 backyards in a single year, Pato. I've heard about that and I can't understand it. That must be something special.
Yeah, well, I've done 5 the last 2 years, but I haven't got into the 40s yet. That's something I'm going to have to do next year. When I start getting higher numbers like you guys, then I'll probably start doing less. Now, hopefully that happens. Yeah.
It surely will. But one of the joys of the podcast is following your progress, and you keep pushing that PB out there, so it's definitely coming.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks again for both coming on. It was really great speaking to you and learning more about how the UK race went down as well.
Oh, thanks very much for having us on. Really enjoyed it.
No problem. I'll hit stop on the record, so I'll speak to you in a sec.